We tend to think of numbers as just utilities, right?
Yeah, completely.
Those sort of colorless, odorless, purely functional tools we use to measure the universe. But every once in a while, you come across a number that seems to have, well, an ego.
An ego, I like that.
A number that refuses to just be a quantity and insists on being, I don't know, an architecture.
That is a very distinct way of putting it. And, usually mathematicians try to strip that personality away just to get to the raw logic.
Of course.
But the research we are looking at today argues that personality or, well, structure, that's the whole point.
And today we are doing a deep dive into the number 65,537. Now, if you're a cryptographer or a number theorist, your ears just perked up. You know this number. It's the largest known Fermat prime. But for everyone else, why are we spending this time talking about a 5-digit integer?
Because 65,537 isn't just a number. The source material, specifically this paper, The Architecture of Resonance, it presents it as a structural anchor.
A structural anchor.
Yeah. It argues this specific number sits at a sort of violent intersection of geometry, theoretical physics, and the encryption that protects your bank account. It's described as a perfect crystal in a sea of mathematical chaos.
A perfect crystal. We're going to unpack that because the authors claim this number connects the very simple act of counting to the dimensional limits of string theory, which, frankly, that sounds a bit like numerology to me.
Fair enough.
So I'm going to be the skeptic here today.
And I welcome the skepticism. I mean, the claims are bold, but the math, surprisingly, it holds up.
All right, let's start with the pedigree. 65,537 is a Fermat prime. So give us the quick history lesson. Why Fermat?
Pierre de Fermat. He was a brilliant French mathematician. This is back in the 17th century. And he had a theory. He looked at numbers generated by the formula 2 plus $1.
Okay.
He noticed that for the first few inputs, so where n is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, the results were always prime numbers.
So he got a little cocky. He assumed this pattern would just go on forever.
He did. He conjectured that all numbers in this format were prime. But he was wrong. The very next one, generated by n equals 5, turned out to be divisible by 641.
Ah.
Euler proved that about a century later.
So the line of Fermat primes just died out.
Exactly. We have 3, 5, 17, 257, and then finally 65,537. And since 1863, we haven't found another one.
Wow.
I mean, we've checked massive numbers, but they've all been composite. So as far as we know, 65,537 is the last of the Mohicans. It's the largest known prime of this very special form.
Okay, so it's rare. It's an endangered species.
Yeah.
But the research we're looking at today says it's not just rare. It's located in a very specific place in the universe of numbers. They use this term, the 36 modular prism.
Right. And this is where we kind of need to visualize things differently. Usually we picture numbers on a flat, infinite line.
Sure.
But the authors argue that to see the texture of numbers, you need to wrap that line around a cylinder.
Okay, a cylinder with a circumference of 36.
Precisely. Yeah. Think it like a clock. But instead of 12 hours, the face has 36 positions. You just start wrapping the number line around it. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 36. Then 37 starts you back at the top.
But why 36? Is that arbitrary?
Not at all. 36 is 6 squared. It's a highly composite number. And if you look at a grid of 36, a huge portion of the slots are, well, they're dead zones.
Dead zones.
They're multiples of 2 or 3.
Dead zones meaning primes can't live there.
Correct. A prime number cannot be an even number except for 2.
Yeah.
And it can't be a multiple of 3 except for 3. So on this 36-hour clock, the positions for 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 12, they're all blocked. They're blind spots.
So the primes are forced into the remaining slots.
The gaps, yes. The source calls these channels. There are only 12 channels available on this wheel where a prime number could possibly exist.
Right.
The text uses this really beautiful image of a rainbow structure. The blind spots are the dark, static zones, but these 12 channels are vibrant, active lanes where the prime numbers travel.
And our celebrity, 65,537, is just cruising down one of these lanes.
It's locked into channel 17.
Wait, channel 17 on a clock of 36.
Think of it as the remainder. If you take 65,537 and divide by 36, the remainder is 17. So it lives in the 17 slot.
Okay, but is that significant? Or is it just a barking spot?
Well, it's significant because of what the paper calls fractal self-similarity. Look at the number 17 itself.
Okay.
17 is also a Fermat prime. It's the third one.
Yeah.
So you have the largest Fermat prime sitting in a structural lane that's defined by a smaller Fermat prime.
Huh. It's like finding out that the biggest room in the house is shaped exactly like the house itself.
That's a great analogy. It suggests the number isn't randomly placed. It has a sort of genetic resonance with its location.
Hmm.
The force describes 65,537 as a mobile probe because of this. It's like it's moving through the number line, testing the stability of this grid, and it settles in a spot that mirrors its own internal structure.
Mobile probe makes it sound active, like it's actually doing something. And the analysis, it breaks this action down. This was the part of the reading that felt a bit like an autopsy. They talk about the four arms of the number.
It's an analysis of its stability. They're essentially poking the number from different mathematical angles to see if it wobbles.
Okay, let's talk about the negative phase, or arm one.
This is a test of its hexagonal symmetry. You take our number, 65,537, and you apply a negative shift. You subtract 1, gives you 65,536.
All right.
That you negate it.
Right.
If you run the modular math, the course points out that negative 65,537 plus 1 is perfectly divisible by 6.
Which goes back to our grid of 36, that's 6 squared.
Right. It shows that the number fits perfectly into the hexagonal lattice. It's not fighting the geometry of the grid, it's harmonized with it.
Okay, that makes sense. But then we get to the section that really raised my eyebrows, the deterministic recursion. This is where they claim the number connects to string theory. Walk us through this, but keep your skeptic hat on.
I will. This process is what the text calls cooling down the number, because 65,537 is built on powers of 216 plus 20 color. They run an algorithm that just peels these powers away, layer by layer, 2 to the 14, 2 to the 13, and so on.
It's a countdown.
It's a decay sequence, and the number drops. 65,537 becomes negative 32,767. Then it drops to negative 8,191. It just keeps shedding value until it hits this mathematical floor, the terminal residue.
And for 65,537, that floor is negative 24.
Negative 24, exactly.
Okay. So we did a bunch of subtraction and we landed at negative 24. Why should I care? I mean, why isn't that just random arithmetic?
And that's the thing. If it were almost any other number, I'd completely agree with you. But negative 24 it's a very specific, almost loaded number in physics.
How so?
In bosonic string theory, the universe requires 26 dimensions to be consistent. 2 of those are light cone coordinates, leaving exactly 24 transverse dimensions.
The dimensions where the vibrations happen?
Precisely. The structure of the Leach lattice, the modular discriminant,
Yeah.
they all hinge on the number 24.
So the argument is, we take a number derived from pure counting of Fermat prime, and when we deconstruct it using its own internal logic, it just spits out the dimensional limit of the universe.
That is the claim. The source calls this a harmonic complete unit. They argue that 65,537 naturally bridges the gap between arithmetic, counting, and the geometric structure of reality.
But hold on, couldn't you do this cooling process with any number and get -24?
No. And that's the proof they provide. They run the same process on what they call semi-primes, numbers that look prime but aren't, like 2,501.
Okay.
When you cool those down, they don't land on clean constants. They crash into these messy random integers like negative 187. They just don't resolve.
So 65,537 sticks the landing.
It sticks the landing, which suggests a minimization of entropy.
Entropy, that's a good bridge to the next section, the physics of a number. The authors stop treating these as abstract concepts and start categorizing them as states of matter, solids, liquids, gases.
I found this metaphor incredibly helpful. It answers the question, what does a number feel like?
So liquids, these are the composite numbers. Why liquid?
Because they flow. You can break them apart, take the number
Yeah.
12, you can pour it into 2 times 6, you can pour it into 3 times 4. It just changes shape.
It fills the container you put it in.
Exactly.
Acrylic.
Those are the primes. You can't break them. They're atomic. But the source argues that Fermat primes, like 65,537, are crystalline solids.
Crystalline implying structure.
Structure and rigidity.
Yeah.
Because of that 36 modular alignment we talked about and that connection to 24, they act as the anchors of the number line. They are the steel beams in a skyscraper.
And then you have gas.
That's the chaos. Pseudo-random numbers, the kind your computer generates for a lottery. They extend to fill space, but they have no internal bonds. High entropy.
And 65,537 is the opposite of that. Low entropy, maximum order.
Maximum order, it resists melting.
Which brings us to the part of the show where we explain why this actually matters to the person listening right now. Because up until this point, we've been very theoretical. But this crystalline nature is the exact reason why 65,537 is currently protecting the internet.
Yes, we need to talk about RSA.
RSA, the encryption standard for basically everything. When you buy something on Amazon, your credit card number is encrypted. And the lock that secures that information uses 65,537.
Almost exclusively. In cryptography, this number is known as the public exponent, or just age-all.
But why? There are infinite prime numbers. Why is this specific number the industry standard?
It comes down to a tug of war between two things, speed and safety.
Let's start with speed. You mentioned earlier that 65,537 is 216 plus A1. How does that help a computer?
Well, computers think in binary, ones and zeros.
Mm-hmm.
And if you write 65,537 in binary, it is incredibly simple. It's a 1 followed by 15 zeros and then another 1.
So it's 100 zeros, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
Exactly. It has what's called a Hamming weight of 2. That just means there are only 2 on switches in the whole string.
And why does a computer care about that?
Because of how computers do math. When a computer calculates an exponent like x to the power of y, it uses an algorithm called square and multiply.
Okay.
Every time it sees a 0 in the binary code, it just does a squaring operation. Simple. But every time it sees a 1, it has to do a squaring operation plus a multiplication.
Ah, I see. Multiplication is expensive in terms of processing power.
Very expensive. It takes more time, more energy. Since 65,537 has mostly zeros and only 2 ones, the computer can skip almost all the heavy lifting. It just squares, 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 and does one final multiplication at the end. The source cites a retrieval time of 40.1 milliseconds.
Yeah.
It is lightning fast.
Okay, so it's fast, but 3 is also a prime number. 3 is just $11 in binary. That's even faster. Why don't we use 3?
We used to, but 3 is, well, it's too small. If you send the same message to multiple recipients using an exponent of 3, hackers can use something called the Chinese remainder theorem to deduce the original message without the key.
It's called a low public exponent attack.
That's the one.
So 3 is too weak. It's like a lock that's too easy to pick.
Exactly. On the other hand, if you pick some random massive number, the Hamming weight would be huge. You would have thousands of ones. Your secure connection would be sluggish. You'd be waiting seconds for pages to load.
So 65,537 is the Goldilocks number.
It really is. It's large enough to avoid the small number attacks that break 3, but its structure, that crystalline binary form, makes it incredibly efficient.
And the source material adds another layer to this security argument. It talks about topological isolation.
This goes right back to our prism. Because 65,537 is a Fermat prime, it's isolated from other numbers. It doesn't share factors with the numbers around it.
Right.
And this makes it resistant to factorization attacks. If you used a messy number, a hacker could use the noise, the partial factors, to kind of wedge a crowbar into the encryption.
Yeah.
But 65,537 is a smooth, sheer wall. There's nowhere to get a grip.
It's fascinating. We selected this number for purely engineering reasons because it made the chips run faster. But it turns out the reason it works so well is tied to this deep intrinsic geometry we were discussing.
And that's the beauty of it. The engineering utility is a direct consequence of the mathematical beauty. They aren't separate things.
Before we wrap up, I want to touch on one final concept from the research, the groove.
The groove of primes, yes.
Which sounds like a bad 70s band, but they're talking about rhythm, right?
Yes. This connects to the Riemann hypothesis, which is, the holy grail of number theory. The Riemann hypothesis predicts where the zeros of the zeta function are. You can think of these zeros as the frequencies that make up the music of the prime numbers.
And where does our celebrity fit in this orchestra?
The source mentions a tool called the Zara Zeta sampler, which is likely a computational model, and it identifies 65,537 as a peak moment.
A peak moment.
Yeah. Think of constructive interference in sound waves. When two waves hit each other perfectly, the volume spikes. The research suggests that 65,537 represents a moment where the waves of number theory align to create this massive spike in order and stability.
And that's why they call it the metronome.
Exactly. In the chaos of the number line, where primes usually appear randomly and unpredictably, 65,537 acts as a beat, a steady pulse. It holds the structure together. If it weren't there, or if it were slightly different, the music would just fall into dissonance.
It's a lot to take in. We started this deep dive talking about a simple integer, 216 plus $1.
Just a count.
But we've seen that this count lives in a specific channel of a 36 modular grid. We've seen it cool down to the exact dimensions of string theory. We've seen it behaving like a crystal, and we've realized that this crystal is the reason you can safely buy things online.
It's the journey from the abstract to the concrete.
The source material ends with the phrase that I really want to leave you with. It calls 65,537 a numerical architecture of being.
That is a heavy phrase.
It is. But it begs the question, did we invent math? I mean, we created the symbol 65,537. We built the computers that use it. But the properties, the -24, the symmetry, the isolation, Those were there before we existed.
It suggests math isn't a language we speak. It's the terrain we live on.
If the universe is a building, 65,537 is definitely one of the load-bearing beams, and I, for one, am glad it's holding up.
Here, here.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you on the next one.